Okay.
All right, so welcome to this edition. Today we have another special guest, Jackie. Thanks for coming on. This is gonna be fun. Jackie, she's in. For those that pay attention, we oftentimes just go through a number of different individuals, their situation. Jackie is specifically with her student loan stuff, is doing all the pay down strategies, so she's gonna be talking about that. But before we get into any of that, Jackie, welcome to the show.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me.
So for those of you, obviously none of you know this because you guys don't know that I know Jackie now for, actually, let me re-say that. Sorry, I completely butchered that. So I've known Jackie now for, I want to say a little bit over 2 years. Was when I first got introduced to Jackie. She came on looking for help with their loans. But before we even get into that, a lot of times people always ask me, like, when does your financial journey start? It's like, it happens a long, long time ago. And since we focus so much on student loans, you know, a lot of it starts when we start undergrad work. And for Jackie, that started for you back in 2011, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what undergrad did you go to? How did you decide to go to that undergrad? What was all that? Were you just, I just go because you wanted to party? Like, what was all the reasoning there?
Yeah, so I kind of knew I wanted to do physical therapy in high school, so I kind of knew what colleges I should gear my applications towards. And I applied to, I think, 7 or 8, just kind of to see what would happen and what scholarship money I would get. So I ended up going to a city in Philadelphia, or a school in Philadelphia, called Temple, and they had a unique program that I could do physical therapy 3 years undergrad and then 3 years of grad school. So right off the bat, that was really attractive because I knew I was going to be saving a year of tuition. And I had got that idea through an advisor by talking to people at that specific school. So that ultimately, when I got in, that is what drew me towards Temple. And then from there, I kept a very close tabs on my loan balances, just from how I was, I guess, raised, and my parents and I had very open conversations about how much school would cost. And then I tried to keep my loans as under control early on, so I didn't take out too much and then couldn't handle it. But there were times where I was unsure if I could even stay at a state school because of how expensive it was. But ultimately I stayed, and I completed a 6-year program to get my doctorate in 2017 from Temple.
Yeah. So it just as a side note, a lot of you listening to this are PT, some that aren't. Basically, a lot of times you have like a 4-year undergrad, obviously, and then like a 3-year. The DBT is 3 years, so it's typically 7 years. And I always joke around because my wife went to a 3-and-3 program at BU, similar of what you did.
Mm-hmm.
And I always joke around because they call them accelerated programs. I'm like, actually, it still takes 6 years. Like, that is a long time.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I always say is when we talk about money, a lot of times people are like, oh, well, people can't do financial strategies because they're not disciplined. And I often say to just healthcare professionals in general, or anybody that's gotten their graduate degrees and stuff, it's like, you're disciplined. You just never been shown how to apply that to money, because it's like, you just went to school for 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. Like, you're disciplined. Like, you're disciplined, way more disciplined than a lot of other people. You just got to apply that to money. And so that's where I'll start off. You graduated in May 2017, DPT. You're not licensed yet as a full-time PT at that point. So talk a little bit about how you game planned and what you did right after graduation to help you just strategically in terms of your job and your profession, but also from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, so when I graduated, my priority was to pass boards, because how it works in the physical therapy world is there's only a couple times a year you can do that. So if I didn't pass that, that would set me back from, starting to make my income. So my first focus was that. And then in the back of my head, I was thinking about where I wanted to work. I had a really wonderful internship, my 4th clinical, that had a prospect of possibly working there full time. And they actually offered me part-time work under a temporary license, which you can do before you even know if you passed your test or not. So I decided to work, I think it was 16 hours a week while I was studying, making a little bit of income. And then once I passed, I really sat down and thought hard about what I wanted to do for my full-time work and gave my full energy there, which my boss at the time was wonderful and flexible and allowed me the time to really think that through. I had thought about travel physical therapy for a while just because I knew there was a lot of financial gains, and I just explored that and ultimately exhausted it and thought I was so comfortable and happy with where I was that I did pursue a full-time position and started working full-time at my last clinical in July of that year after I passed sports.
Good stuff. Good stuff. What area of PT did you end up going into?
Outpatient. It's a private practice, and we specialize in vestibular therapy, which is a really fun thing to do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So obviously, one of the main purposes of these podcasts is to give people motivation, give them ideas. What was the loan balance when you graduated in May of 2017?
So when I graduated, from the time of undergrad to that point, I had $170,000 in debt total. Mm-hmm. And that was all through the government. All my loans were. I had no private loans. I ended up using Graduate Plus loans, and I think I did a few Parent Plus loans as well with co-signing from my parents, which was also a whole nother discussion. But they were willing to do that, so I didn't have to deal with the private loan vendors at that time. So that was my balance.
And I remember the interest rates range from about 3.6 up close to about 7% on your loans. Mm-hmm. You know, I remember a lot of the times when people graduate, they get shocked about the accrued interest. Part of yours, $170,000, wasn't all balanced. Right. So it was, do you remember off the top of your head how much was balanced and then how much was accrued interest?
Yes, I had $148 in principal. And then at that time, it had the interest had accrued, so the total balance was about $170. Yep. And there's this concept of a grace period where your loans don't go into repayment until 6 months after you graduate, but the interest is still accruing. And if you don't pay it off, then the interest becomes principal. Yep. So I was making money, and I had money in my pocket at the time, around like $15,000 I had made. And I was like, okay, what do I do with that? And I had spoken to another person before I talked to Joe about what I should do with that chunk of money. And I ended up deducting the interest so that it didn't become principal and didn't capitalize, which now looking back, I'm actually really happy I did, just knowing the effect of interest on loan.
Yeah, it saves a lot over time. So yeah, I wanted to make sure I touched on that accrued interest stuff because I know that we have a lot of students that are still in school, and then also a lot of you that are listening might have graduated in like August, or we're graduating coming up here in December. And one of the biggest things that we get back from people are like, well, I thought that I borrowed X amount, but then I looked at my statement for the first time and it's Y amount. What happened? That's the accrued interest. So like if you're a student or a new grad, you know, make sure that you understand that about the accrued interest, that it's not just how much you took out, but you're being charged every day while you're in school. Okay. So fast forward a little bit. You said one of the key things in there is that you had paid off some of the interest during your grace period. So you graduated in May, by about October, you'd already paid off about $15,000. Okay. Mm-hmm. Which is awesome. So when you actually entered repayment, you had owed about $154,000. You know, what did you do first, and how did you start proceeding as soon as you entered repayment?
Yes. So I started repayment with the governmental loans on a standard 10-year plan that had a set fixed payment that had to be made. And then on top of that, every month I would pay an additional amount, which is now called a prepayment towards that loan. And I thought that at the time that was like a great strategy, and I was just really going to knock these things out. But I then realized after talking to Joe that there are smarter ways to pay things off. So I think if I can segue into how I found you guys, I follow a lot of things closely on Facebook, and I have classmates who have reached out to Joe, and I thought I knew a lot about loans already. I thought I was on top of it. And then when I spoke to him, I got a wonderful overview of my options and things I, of course, wouldn't think of because this is not my expertise. My expertise is in therapy, not finances. And he ended up guiding me towards one of his wonderful solutions that was a smarter way to pay down some of my loans after considering all the other options, which is a lot of different things people are doing out there. And he presented them to me, and then together we figured out what was best for my specific circumstance, which I really appreciated. There was no pressure. It was kind of all presented to me, and then I could select what I was comfortable doing. So then at that point, I switched my payment plan to an extended one where I was paying it over 25 years. And all that did was drop the loan balance. So I had a lower required monthly payment, and then my extra money, I could decide where it went.
Yep.
So that was key.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know about that little trick, basically, instead of using a standard 10-year plan, you extend it to 25 years, drops the required payment, so that frees up more money that you can prepay and target specific loans. One of the cool things is that every time in your federal loans, every time you pay off one of your loans, your required minimum actually continues to drop. And so then you can increase how much you prepay to the next loan and the next loan and the next loan. And that's actually one of the cool things, Jack, I was going to tell you, because I know that when you had, so just so that way you guys know, and Jack talked to us, she signed up for our payoff tracking solution, that if you don't know what that solution is, basically it makes sure that the loan servicer is applying the payments correctly, okay? Because that's about 60% of the time they mess up those prepayments. So Jackie has signed up for that, but one of the cool things that we actually just added to that is now when you put in the prepayments, we have a calculator on that tool that it will show you an estimation of when each one of your loans would be paid off based on your prepayment. And we did that with a lot of feedback from like you and a couple other people that had signed up for that, basically being like, so when am I going to pay this first one off? And everybody gets all excited, and it's like, well, maybe we should just put that in the tool. So that's there now. It's a cool feature. I really like it because it really helps planning and it really helps goal setting. Saying I'm going to pay this one off by this date. So now one thing that I do want to hit on, that was I believe in February of 2018.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The number one question we get, and we get this because people see advertising all over the place, is about refinancing. And I always say refinancing isn't for everybody. We don't refinance. I think it's something like only 30 or 40% of the people that we talk to that are paying off their loans refinance something in their loans. That was in February of 2018. And you ended up refinancing some of your loans, but it wasn't until like June of 2018. So talk a little bit about why when we first switched the plan, you decided, okay, I want to hold off for a little bit on refinancing.
Yeah, so I guess first and foremost, I was very unfamiliar with that concept. So I was more uncomfortable and I just really needed to learn about it. And I was seeing and kind of proving to myself that I was able to keep this aggressive strategy. So I wanted to make sure that I was doing my part before I lost the benefits of a governmental loan that has different, more flexibility and, protection. So I was very nervous to pursue that. However, I thought of, a bunch of questions and I ran them all by Joe specifically, who answered all of them wonderfully. And then we came up with a solution that I was comfortable with. So I think I ended up waiting so long because I just wanted to, feel comfortable with the decision before I pursued it. And then something Joe told me is, what will help you sleep at night? Now, if you do option A, option B, option C, and we went through those. And then what I ultimately did was refinance just a portion of my loan, which was actually pretty significant at that point. I think I have it written down. I refinanced about $107,000 at the time, the certain percentage interest rate. And then I left a little bit with the governmental loans just so I felt, a little bit of peace of mind and that my required payment wasn't super, super high in case there was like an emergency. So there's definitely flexibility in which plan I could choose with the refi, which I took some time to think about and then ultimately chose one with one of the recommended vendors through Joe, who gave me a really good rate.
Yep, and you hit on a couple things in there that's really important. One, especially when we talk about refinancing, everybody wants to save. They don't think about all the times, what does it do to your budget? And so you got to make sure that you can actually afford some of these payments and whatnot. We talked to so many people that actually come to us after they refi, but they refied into the wrong loan. They went too short of a term because they got enticed by a lower interest rate. They didn't really do the math on it. And they're like, what do I do? So then we got to refinance them again into something else that's more appropriate for them. So budget flexibility is one of the key things. But the bigger thing that you said in there, and I stress this a lot, at the end of the day, we can always show you the most efficient thing that's going to save you the most money, or, you know, investment wise, you can invest in XYZ and make the most money, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the one that you go with is the one that you're going to sleep at night on, and the one that you're actually going to do. Like that's the most important thing. Because all these, too many times I see like financial advisors and stuff, they're like, you should do this because this is going to give you the most money. And it's like, maybe if you just pause and ask them the question, would you do this in my situation? Most of them are going to say no. Like, they're like, no, well, no, I wouldn't do that. But it's like, well, why not? And they're like, well, because of XYZ. And it's like, well, how's that different than me? Like, you know, and they don't give you the quote honest. I guess it is honest, but it's just from a different perspective because it's not their money, it's not their situation. So it's just like, dude, why wouldn't you do this? So yeah, it's interesting to see, you know, because we get people all the time like, I was told to do this on the refinance. It's like, oh, slow down a little bit, slow. But the good news is, that was in June 2018. I think you ended up closing out the loan at 4.91%. If I remember off the top of my head, 4.91% was on a 12-year loan. It's probably with Splash Financial.
Yep.
At that time, that company was brand new. That was their like special. It was an awesome rate. And then all of a sudden their rates jumped. We started going to another company, but now we have 9 different lenders. So it's like,
Options.
so yeah, our heads explode so that way you guys don't have to.
I second that. Big time.
So again, just to reiterate, you had $169,000 when you graduated May 2017.
Yep.
By November 2017, that was down to about $154,000. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to today, so about 2 years. How much do you owe?
So 26 months later, I currently owe about $61,000 total.
So I will repeat that for some of you that are listening. Started off when she graduated with 169.
Mm-hmm.
And if you include payments while you're in your grace period, it would be about 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. It's down to $61,000. So over $100,000 already repaid in that 2.5 year time period. If you continue at the pace that you're on, you're going to have your loans paid off by January of 2021. Okay. So literally having $169,000 paid off in about 3.5 years, which is phenomenal. So then the next question is, obviously, how are you doing this?
Yes. I guess there's a couple ways to answer that. So first and foremost is my living situation. I save a lot of money by living with my parents, which I realize not everyone has a luxury of doing, and I do. So that really has helped me. And I've been living with my parents through grad school as well. So I've been saving in that way. I also pursue like extra income opportunities through I nanny and I babysit. So that I kind of use for my cash flow. My work situation, I selected not to overwork to prevent my own burnout per se. So I do work a 40-hour work week, occasionally pick up extra hours here and there. But I work a 40-hour work week, and that's where I make obviously a bulk of how I'm doing this. I know people work PRN and take side jobs, which is great. And if I didn't live at home, I definitely would have to and want to. But because of my living situation, I'm able to work a 40-hour work week. The other part of it is, I guess, the money behavior. I've always been tight with my money or frugal for as long as I can remember. All my friends kind of know that about me. So just how I live in general, I use a lot of thrift stores. I buy things secondhand. I'm not going out to dinner frequently. I tend to avoid situations where I'll be spending a lot of money. Like if I know something's going to cost me a bunch, I just maybe don't do it.
Yep.
But I also allow myself to have times out and times with my friends because that maintains my sanity. For example, this year, actually last month, I went to visit some of my friends in Nashville, and I just paid for the flight, stayed at their house, and we ate in every night. And I did that whole thing for less than $400. So I've found a way to balance saving and sanity while really putting my head down and knocking this thing out, which is hard to do when a lot of people around me aren't doing it.
Yep.
So.
Well, yeah, you just hit on something really important, about how hard it is when other people around you are not doing it. I mean, is there anybody that is around you that is supportive that helps you keep that path towards paying it off? Because you are paying these off really aggressively. So is there
Yeah.
anybody there that helps you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my parents are my roommates, I call them. They're supportive of what I'm doing. I do have a few classmates. We talk very openly about all this stuff, so that's helpful. Those are probably the two main things.
Yeah, the reason why.
Like I said, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say my friends kind of know I'm pretty open, so like my close friends know that this is what I'm doing, so they don't expect a lot out of me as far as.
It's funny. It's part of the reason why I think that a lot of times people get into financial trouble, or not trouble, but just don't really go anywhere with their finances. They're not really progressing, but they're not really regressing at the same time, or maybe they are in financial trouble, is because a lot of people just don't talk about it. Like it's an embarrassment or something. It's like, well, who cares? Like, just talk about it. But I wanted to make sure to point that out. Just, I've talked about this on different podcasts and different stuff about having that support network, because it is so easy to just be able, I mean, in your 20s and 30s, go out every night and eat. I mean, I'm the same way. It's like, I can cook, but I'm like lazy when it comes to that. And I really just go out and eat, like, and I hate leftovers. So it's like, I'd rather eat out every single night. My wife hates it. But it's like, you got to have somebody there with you. Cause like for me, it's like my wife is like, nope, you're not eating out tonight. Like we have food. Like we just spent $500 at the grocery store. Like we're eating home. Like, and then if she wasn't here, I'd be like, like today we have a refrigerator full of food, and I went to the hamburger place down the street and got a hamburger. Like it just, she wasn't home and nobody's there to support me. But yeah, that's extremely, extremely important. But also, like you said, reward yourself. That's one of the key things. And Nashville is an awesome time. We were this close to moving the company to Nashville instead of Austin. But my mom said that it would be okay if I moved halfway across the country, but fully across the country with my granddaughter, or her granddaughter, I should say, wasn't going to fly. So, but good stuff. Well, a few more questions, and just really, looking forward, you're going to have the loans paid off in about a year. Have you thought about what you're going to be doing afterwards? Because it's like, okay, well, now that we don't have debt, what do we do? What are you looking at after you're done?
I haven't thought that far. I just want to do something simple. Like I want to get a new wardrobe and like throw out my old clothes, like the simple stuff. But yeah, it is a large chunk of money that I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with. Moving out is the ultimate goal. If I can hang in there that long, I'll wait and then move out when I'm done, which is, another priority of mine, just to kind of get on with my life a little bit. But I am able to save a little bit currently, like with investing. I do have a 401k going with my company that my boss matches, so I'm not missing out on that free money. So I'm sure I'll investigate, how I can do better with that portion of things with my income. But right now it's really, my eyes are on the loan balance primarily.
Awesome. Wink, wink. By 2021, we should have a new solution up where we're doing asset management. So yes. that is coming down the pike. That is coming down the pike. I actually just spent all day today looking at graphics and flow charts, and my head's about to explode from it. So that's coming down the pike. But that is definitely going to be a good situation to be in, because now you're going to be like, look, I got all this money. What do I do with it? All right, I'm just sitting here. And the funny thing is sometimes a lot of people will say, like it's hard to get started doing these types of things. And it is, but you quickly realize that you don't, a lot of the stuff that we buy is useless crap. Like you don't really need it. It's like, well, why am I buying this? Like, I'm just going to use it like once. The funny thing is, after you start in that cycle and you're used to making so many payments, a lot of people are like, oh, well, once I'm done with this debt, like I'm going to go out and now I can afford everything. It's like, well, most of the time people don't end up doing that. They just end up saving because there's just like, I really don't need this stuff. And so, I mean, like you said, you've pretty much been like that your entire life, just frugal, but just with this experience, because it's one thing like growing up in high school, early in college, because we don't have the income and we don't have six figures in student loan debt. This specific experience of saying, okay, well, I'm paying this specific thing off, and now it's a big chunk of money. How do you think those lessons that you've learned will apply into the future?
That's a good question. I just think I will always continue to like keep an eye on my money and look at it and talk about it, so I don't lose track of where it's going. I think that's really important. I'm currently not dependent on anyone. I'm independent. I have no children, no family. So I'm sure that, as hopefully that happens in the future, I'll have to share my ideals and my, finances with someone else, which I think is something I will have to learn how to do. And just remember that the more we talk about it and look at it and have open conversations about it, and make sure that, the bases are covered, that like I'm preparing for emergencies if they come, I'm being realistic about expectations, and I just try to keep my social network one that has somewhat similar ideals, will help, because that's what's helped so far.
Yeah, see, you got to do what I did when I used to date people. I literally like sit down first dinner and be like, look, this is the way I am. I go, boom, boom, boom. If you don't like it, tell me now. We can just cut this short and be on a separate way. So you can imagine my shock when my wife was like, yeah, that's cool. It's like, what? Like, I guess I'm getting married.
It works. There you are.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, just to close it out, again, thanks for coming on. If there's one or two just piece of advice or anything that you want to reiterate to anybody watching, give them hope, give them inspiration, what would it be?
Yeah, that people are doing it. Like, people are taking care of business. I didn't think people were. And then when I realized that it's possible, it gave me motivation to do it. Like what you do every day, because that's how this happens. If you wake up every day and you're not happy to go to work or happy to go get the income that you have to get, you're not going to be able to do it. So be smart about, how you structure your daily life. I make sure that I kind of hold on to my stress relief mechanisms, just like you would in school. It's the same thing. It carries over in a work-life balance. And then talk to FitBucks.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's funny. So I get this question all the time, and I'll end it with this kind of as a joke. You talked about like, doing what you like doing. And I always say, it doesn't matter. I know guys on Wall Street that used to make $500,000 and they burned out in 18 months. They don't even work with money anymore. Like, they're just done.
Yeah.
And you talked about like the stress and that type of stuff. It's actually really funny because I have people that have watched some of these videos and they're like, what's the thing that keeps popping up in the videos? And I carry around a miniature baseball bat like all day long. Like, I used to be a baseball player. I used to work for the Dodgers and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's like my employees, they joke around because they tell new people that come into work for us, like Joe actually hits people with that when he gets pissed. Like, so that's my stress mechanism, is that. So those of you that watch this, that have sent me those emails or those Facebook messages saying, what's in your hand? Now you know what it is. So good stuff. Well, thank you very much for coming on. It's always fun talking. Maybe next time I'm out that way and swing by. It's still looking to get out to those Pennsylvania schools.
Yes, there's a lot there.
So, and if any of you guys are watching and want to do a workshop at your school, let us know. We'll be more than happy to come out. So thank you again, and we'll be talking soon.
You're welcome. Thanks, Joe, for having me.
Thanks.